history is a tapestry woven with missing threads. Across every continent, we stumble upon colossal remnants of a world that shouldn't exist, monoliths so massive they defy gravity, and joints so seamless that even a blade of silk cannot pass between them. These are not merely ruins, they are scars on the face of time, left behind by those who mastered the stars before we even understood the wheel. We speak of progress as a ladder, yet these silent sentinels suggest we are living in the wake of a forgotten peak. Who moved the mountains to build temples for gods whose names have turned to dust? Every shadow in these corridors feels like a lingering thought, a fragment of high science masked as mythology. We are not the first to look at the sky and wonder, but we might be the first to have forgotten the answers our ancestors once held in their hands. Across the windswept northern landscapes of Scotland, where the Atlantic crashes endlessly against jagged cliffs, there stand ancient towers of stone, silent, imposing, and deeply enigmatic. Known as brochs, these structures rise from the earth like relics of a forgotten intelligence. At first glance, they appear simple, circular, thick-walled towers built from stacked stone. But step closer, and their simplicity dissolves into something far more unsettling. These are not crude ruins. They are precise, engineered, intentional. Built over 2,000 years ago, during the Iron Age, the brochs of Scotland challenge what we assume about prehistoric societies. They suggest a level of architectural sophistication that feels almost out of place in their time structures that seem to belong to a more advanced understanding of engineering than history is comfortable admitting. Brochs are found almost exclusively in Scotland, particularly in the northern and western regions, places like the Orkney Islands, the Shetland Islands, and the rugged Highlands. One of the most famous examples, Mousa Broch, stands on a small island in Shetland, remarkably intact after millennia of exposure to harsh coastal weather. This geographic confinement raises immediate questions. Why here? Why nowhere else? Despite extensive contact between ancient European cultures, nothing quite like the broch appears beyond Scotland. No transitional designs, no gradual evolution into or out of the form. The broch emerges abruptly in the archaeological record, fully realized, and then disappears just as mysteriously. It is as if the knowledge required to build them was both discovered and lost within a narrow window of time. To understand the true mystery of brochs, one must look beyond their exterior and into their structure. At their core, brochs are built using dry stone construction stones, carefully stacked without mortar. This technique alone is not unusual, but what is unusual is how it is used. The walls of a broch can be up to 5 meters thick, yet they are not solid. Instead, they consist of 2 parallel stone walls with a hollow space in between, and within this space are hidden architectural features, staircases spiraling upward, small chambers embedded within the walls, and passageways that seem to serve no obvious purpose. This double wall system is astonishing because it reduces weight while maintaining strength, allows vertical movement within the structure itself, and creates a building that is both massive and internally complex. It raises a troubling question. How did Iron Age builders, without advanced tools or written architectural plans, conceive of such a design? Even today, constructing a stable multi-story tower using only dry stone requires a deep understanding of load distribution balance and material behavior. Yet brochs not only stand, they endure, with Mousa Broch still rising to over 13 meters, one of the best-preserved prehistoric towers in Europe. The function of Brochs remains one of their greatest unsolved mysteries. At first glance, their thick walls and narrow entrances suggest defensive structures, fortresses built to withstand attack, especially in a landscape shaped by tribal conflict. However, this interpretation becomes less certain under closer examination. Many Brochs are not positioned in obviously strategic locations, and some lack evidence of long-term occupation. Others, however, reveal traces of daily life, such as hearths, pottery, and tools suggesting they were lived in, rather than merely defended. Another theory proposes that Brochs served as elite residences, homes of powerful individuals or families meant to display status and authority through their scale and complexity. Yet even this explanation feels incomplete because the level of effort invested in their construction seems excessive for purely domestic purposes. The inclusion of hidden stairways and internal chambers hints at functions that go beyond simple habitation. Some researchers suggest that Brochs may have held symbolic or ritual significance, acting as monuments that represented power, identity, or a connection between the physical and spiritual world. Without written records, however, these ideas remain interpretations built upon silent evidence. Excavations of Broch sites have uncovered a range of artifacts, including pottery fragments, animal bones, tools, and occasional signs of fire or destruction. These findings confirm that Brochs were used by human communities, but they do little to clarify their broader purpose. In some locations, evidence suggests long-term occupation across multiple generations, while in others, usage appears brief or abruptly interrupted. Some Brochs show signs of violent damage, possibly indicating conflict, whereas others seem to have been abandoned without clear cause. This inconsistency complicates attempts to define a single function or narrative. Archaeologists have also observed that Brochs are often part of larger settlement networks surrounded by smaller structures that indicate organized communities. Yet even within these contexts, the Broch stands apart, elevated both physically and symbolically above its surroundings. It is not simply another building, it is the focal point, the anomaly, the structure that demands explanation but refuses to provide one. To fully appreciate how unusual Brochs are, they must be compared to other ancient constructions of the same era. Across much of Iron Age Europe, architecture was relatively modest, consisting primarily of wooden dwellings, earthworks, and simple stone enclosures. Even fortified settlements rarely achieved the vertical complexity seen in Brochs. In other parts of the ancient world, more advanced stone construction did exist, such as the megalithic temples of Malta or early Mediterranean urban centers, but these followed entirely different architectural principles and did not employ the hollow double-wall system that defines Brochs. There is no clear evolutionary path leading to their design, nor any subsequent structures that directly continue their methods. Brochs appear as a fully developed concept, isolated in both geography and technique, and then vanish without leaving a direct architectural legacy. They do not fit neatly into the known progression of ancient engineering. They stand apart as something singular and unexplained. In attempting to explain Brochs, several theories have emerged, none of which fully resolves the mystery. One possibility is that they represent a peak of local innovation, a moment when a particular community developed an advanced architectural solution suited to its environment, but one that was never widely adopted beyond its region. Another theory suggests cultural exchange, proposing that external influences introduced new ideas that were adapted into the Broch form, though evidence for such influences remains limited. A more speculative interpretation considers the possibility that Brochs are remnants of knowledge that was later lost, perhaps due to social upheaval, environmental change, or the collapse of the communities that created them. This leads to a deeper and more unsettling question: are Brochs truly as advanced as they appear? Or do they only seem extraordinary because we underestimate the capabilities of ancient societies? Today, the Brochs of Scotland remain as they have for centuries, weathered, resilient, and silent. They do not tell us who built them, they do not explain why they were constructed, and they offer no clear answers about how such architectural knowledge emerged or why it disappeared. Yet they endure, standing against time and erosion, forcing us to confront the limits of our understanding. Because sometimes the greatest mysteries are not about what has been lost, but about what was never fully understood in the first place. Across the Mediterranean island of Sardinia, scattered among rolling hills and rugged plains, lie the remnants of a civilization that left no written records, only stone. The Nuragic people, who flourished between roughly 1800 and 500 BCE, are best known for their towering stone fortresses called Nuragic. Yet among their most mysterious creations are not those that rise above the ground, but those that descend beneath it. Hidden beneath the earth, carved with precision and intention, are the Nuragic water well structures that blur the line between engineering ritual and cosmic design. At first glance, they appear to be simple sources of water, but step closer, descend their carefully crafted stairways, and a deeper mystery begins to unfold. Sardinia, the second largest island in the Mediterranean, sits isolated yet strategically positioned between Europe and North Africa. Its landscape shaped by windswept plateaus, fertile valleys, and ancient volcanic rock formations formed over millions of years. It is within this terrain that dozens of Nuragic wells have been discovered, often in remote or elevated locations, suggesting deliberate placement rather than coincidence. One of the most famous examples, the Well of Santa Cristina, lies in the central western part of the island, while others appear near ancient settlements, forming part of a broader cultural and spiritual network. In such an environment, water was not merely a resource, but a force essential to survival, and perhaps something sacred. Many of these wells were never entirely lost to time, as local populations had long known of their existence, often weaving them into folklore and rural traditions, yet systematic archaeological study only began in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Excavations revealed something extraordinary beneath layers of soil and collapsed stone. Intact staircases descending into darkness, each step uniform, each stone deliberately shaped and placed with intent. At the base, archaeologists uncovered circular chambers containing still water, sometimes preserved in near-perfect condition, as if untouched by the passing centuries. Artifacts discovered nearby, including bronze figurines, pottery fragments, and offerings, suggested that these were not merely functional wells, but spaces of ritual significance, possibly drawing communities together for purposes far beyond survival. The true enigma of the Nuragic wells lies in their construction, where engineering meets intention in ways that still challenge modern understanding. A typical well consists of a trapezoidal entrance leading to a descending staircase that guides the visitor downward into a subterranean chamber capped by a corbelled dome, each element aligned with striking precision. The stones are cut and fitted so tightly that even after thousands of years, many joints remain intact without the use of mortar, creating a sense of permanence that defies time itself. The geometry is deliberate and controlled, the staircase narrowing gradually to shape perception as much as movement, while the chamber below forms a near-perfect circle, crowned by a dome that converges with mathematical elegance. The experience is immersive and almost hypnotic, suggesting that the builders were not only concerned with structure, but with the psychological and symbolic impact of the space, raising profound questions about the tools they used, the knowledge they possessed, and the purpose that drove such meticulous craftsmanship beneath the earth. Some of the most compelling mysteries of the Nuragic wells emerge not from their stonework alone, but from their relationship with light and the sky above, revealing patterns that seem too precise to be accidental. At specific times of the year, particularly during solar and lunar events, beams of light penetrate the opening of the well and travel down the staircase, reaching the water below, where they reflect upward in controlled and visually striking ways. At Santa Cristina, researchers have observed that the well appears to align with the moon's extreme rising positions, a phenomenon that follows an 18.6-year cycle during which the reflection of the moon becomes perfectly framed within the geometry of the chamber. Such alignment suggests not only observation, but long-term tracking of celestial cycles, implying a level of astronomical awareness that challenges conventional assumptions about Bronze Age societies, leaving open the question of whether this precision was intentional design or an extraordinary coincidence shaped by unknown factors. The discovery of offerings within and around these wells provides strong evidence that they held deep ritual significance, transforming them from utilitarian structures into spaces of symbolic and possibly spiritual importance. Bronze figurines, often depicting human forms or animals, have been found alongside ceramics and other objects that appear to have been intentionally placed rather than discarded, suggesting acts of devotion or ceremonial practice. In many ancient cultures, water was associated with purification, fertility, and the boundary between worlds, and within the enclosed, echoing environment of a Nuragic well. These meanings may have been intensified, creating a setting where physical descent mirrored a symbolic journey. The stillness of the water, the controlled presence of light, and the carefully shaped architecture all contribute to an atmosphere that feels deliberately sacred, leading some scholars to interpret these wells as sanctuaries where rituals were performed to invoke deities, mark celestial cycles, or establish a connection between the human world and forces beyond it. When compared with other ancient structures across the Mediterranean and beyond, the Nuragic wells reveal intriguing parallels while maintaining a distinct identity that sets them apart. The megalithic temples of Malta display similar precision in stone construction and possible astronomical alignments, while in Ireland, the passage tomb of Newgrange is famously aligned with the winter solstice sunrise, illuminating its inner chamber in a dramatic and symbolic event. In ancient Greece, Tholos tombs feature corbelled domes that echo the architectural techniques seen in Sardinia, demonstrating that such knowledge was not entirely isolated. Yet the Nuragic wells differ in a crucial way, as they are oriented downward rather than upward, or outward, focusing attention on the earth and water rather than the sky or the horizon, creating an experience that is inward, immersive, and uniquely introspective within the broader context of ancient architecture. Despite decades of archaeological research, no single explanation fully accounts for the purpose and meaning of the Nuragic water wells, leaving them suspended between interpretation and mystery. Some scholars argue that they were primarily functional, designed to access and protect reliable water sources in a challenging environment, while others emphasize their ritual significance, viewing them as sacred spaces dedicated to water worship and communal ceremony. A more provocative perspective suggests that their precise alignments with celestial events indicate a level of scientific knowledge that may exceed what is typically attributed to Bronze Age societies, raising the possibility of independent development of advanced observational techniques or contact with other cultures across the Mediterranean. There are even theories proposing that these wells functioned as observational instruments, using geometry and reflection to track celestial movements in ways that remain only partially understood. Yet without written records, each theory remains incomplete, and certainty continues to elude even the most careful investigation. The Nuragic water wells of Sardinia are more than archaeological structures. They are enduring questions carved into stone, challenging modern assumptions about ancient knowledge, engineering, and belief. They exist at the intersection of utility and ritual, of earth and sky, of science and symbolism, inviting those who descend into them to experience not only a physical space, but a layered narrative shaped by intention and mystery. Standing at the base of one of these wells, looking into the still surface of the water, one might see a reflection of the sky above, but also a reflection of a civilization whose depth, complexity, and understanding of the world remain only partially revealed, waiting perhaps for future discoveries to bring their hidden knowledge fully into the light. Across the rugged landscapes of ancient Iran, entire mountainsides bear witness to a forgotten language of power. These are not ruins in the conventional sense. They are not cities, nor temples, nor tombs. Instead, they are monumental carvings, etched directly into living rock, silent, immovable, and impossibly enduring. Known today as the Sasanian rock reliefs, these works were created during the Sasanian Empire, which ruled from the 3rd to the 7th century CE. At first glance, they appear to be grand royal portraits, kings receiving crowns, warriors triumphing over enemies, rulers frozen in moments of divine glory. But look closer, and something begins to feel different. These are not merely images. They are statements, messages, possibly even a carefully constructed narrative, one that has survived long after the empire that created it vanished. The reliefs are scattered across key regions of modern-day Iran, most notably at sites such as Naqsh Rostam, Naqsh Rajab, and Taqi Bostan. These are not random locations. Each site sits along ancient routes, paths once used by traders' armies and travelers. Many are positioned near earlier imperial centers, including those of the much older Achaemenid Empire. At Naqsh Rostam, the Sasanian carvings are placed directly beneath towering royal tombs, carved centuries earlier by Achaemenid kings. The visual effect is striking, new rulers literally inscribing themselves into the shadow of ancient power. This deliberate placement raises an unsettling question. Were the Sasanians simply honoring the past, or were they rewriting it? Unlike buried cities or lost temples, the Sasanian rock reliefs were never truly lost. They stood in plain sight for centuries, visible to local populations and passing travelers alike. Yet their meaning faded. Early explorers from Europe documented them in the 17th and 18th centuries, often with confusion. Some misidentified the figures. Others failed to grasp the symbolic language embedded within the scenes. It was not until modern archaeology began to study them systematically that their historical context became clearer. Even then, clarity did not bring certainty, because understanding what they depict is not the same as understanding why they were made. The first true mystery reveals itself not in symbolism, but in execution. These reliefs were carved directly into vertical rock faces, often at significant heights, with no modern scaffolding, no advanced machinery, and limited evidence of the tools used. And yet figures are proportionally accurate. Details, such as fabric folds, armor, and hair, are rendered with remarkable precision, and compositions remain balanced even across massive surfaces. At Takye Bostan, one relief shows a royal hunting scene so intricate that individual animals appear mid-motion, frozen in a dynamic composition that feels almost cinematic. How were such surfaces prepared? How were proportions maintained at scale? And perhaps most importantly, how did artisans achieve such consistency across multiple sites? There are answers, but none of them feel complete. The scenes themselves are deceptively simple. A king stands or rides a god, extends a ring or diadem, an enemy kneels beneath a horse. But within these compositions lies a dense web of meaning. One recurring motif is the investiture scene, where a divine figure often associated with Ahura Mazda grants authority to the king, making the message unmistakable. Royal power is not earned, it is given, sanctioned by the divine. Another striking image appears in the reliefs of Shapur I, where a Roman emperor is shown kneeling or captured. Historically, this refers to the defeat of Emperor Valerian, a rare and humiliating moment in Roman history. But here, the event is transformed. It is not just a victory, it is a statement of cosmic order. The king does not merely defeat his enemies, he dominates them within a divinely structured universe. Yet even here, questions remain. Are these scenes accurate depictions of events, or are they carefully constructed illusions designed to project absolute authority? Perhaps the most intriguing mystery lies in what the Sasanians chose not to erase. At several sites, their reliefs exist alongside or directly beneath older carvings from the Achaemenid period. Instead of destroying these earlier works, the Sasanians position themselves in relation to them. This creates a layered visual narrative where ancient kings stand above and Sasanian kings below, forming a continuous vertical story of power. But continuity may not equal connection. Did the Sasanians fully understand the culture they were referencing, or were they selectively appropriating symbols to construct legitimacy? In a sense, they were not just carving images, they were editing history. Modern archaeology has provided valuable insights. The identity of many kings has been confirmed through inscriptions, historical events depicted in reliefs often align with known records, and stylistic analysis reveals a consistent artistic tradition across the empire. Yet, major gaps remain. There is little direct evidence of the workshops or training systems that produce these artisans. No detailed records describe the carving process, and even the tools themselves are largely inferred rather than definitively identified. While the scenes are well preserved, their full symbolic language is not. Certain gestures, object placements, and compositional choices continue to resist clear interpretation. It is as if part of the message has been lost while the medium endures. Rock reliefs are not unique to the Sasanian world. Ancient Egypt carved monumental scenes into temple walls, the Assyrians created detailed reliefs of battles and hunts, and even the Romans used relief sculpture to commemorate victories. But there is a difference. Most other civilizations placed their reliefs within architectural spaces, such as temples, palaces, or urban centers. The Sasanians chose mountains. This decision transforms the function of the artwork. These are not decorations. They are declarations embedded in the natural world itself, unmovable, unignorable, and permanent. So, what were the Sasanian rock reliefs truly meant to be? Several theories attempt to explain their purpose. They may have been political propaganda, a visual system designed to reinforce royal authority, especially in regions far from administrative centers. They may represent religious symbolism, reflecting Zoroastrian cosmology, in which kings act as intermediaries between divine and earthly realms. They may have been a form of historical narrative control, an intentional reshaping of past events, presented as absolute truth through monumental imagery. Or perhaps they reflect cultural continuity or reinvention, an effort to connect with ancient empires through genuine heritage or strategic imitation. Each theory explains part of the puzzle, but none explain it completely. Today, the Sasanian rock reliefs remain where they were first carved, exposed to wind time and the slow erosion of centuries. Empires have fallen, religions have shifted, and languages have changed, but these images endure. They do not tell us everything, and they do not reveal their full meaning. Instead, they do something far more unsettling. They suggest that long ago, an empire understood something fundamental, that power is not only exercised through armies or laws, but through images, through symbols, through narratives, carved so deeply into the world that they outlast memory itself. And perhaps the greatest mystery is not how they were made, but whether we are still seeing exactly what they wanted us to see. Rising abruptly from the gentle vineyards of eastern France, the rock of Solutré appears almost out of place, like a fragment of another world, embedded in a quiet, rural landscape. From a distance, it is striking but serene, yet up close, it becomes something else entirely, a geological monument that has watched over tens of thousands of years of human activity. Beneath its towering limestone face lies a mystery that continues to challenge archaeologists, historians, and scientists alike, for at its base, hidden beneath layers of sediment and time, rests one of the most extraordinary accumulations of animal remains ever discovered in prehistoric Europe. Thousands upon thousands of horse bones, stacked, layered, and preserved, form a silent archive of a forgotten past, raising a question that is both simple and profound. What happened here? The rock of Solutré stands in the Burgundy region of France, near the town of Mâcon, rising approximately 100 meters above the surrounding plains, its steep slopes and sharp ridges forming a natural vantage point over the landscape. During the Upper Paleolithic period, this region looked dramatically different, with vast open steppes stretching across the land under colder climates and dominated by herds of large grazing animals, especially wild horses, that migrated seasonally in predictable patterns. For prehistoric humans, this environment represented both opportunity and challenge, where survival depended not only on physical endurance, but on strategy. And Solutré, with its commanding elevation and funnel-like terrain, may have provided the perfect natural arena for repeated large-scale hunting events whose true nature remains unclear. The mystery of Solutré began to unfold in the 19th century, when archaeologists first excavated the site and uncovered something that defied expectation: dense layers of horse bones lying beneath the surface in such extraordinary numbers that early researchers described them as entire fields of skeletal remains. Over time, more systematic excavations revealed that these bones belonged to tens of thousands of animals accumulated over thousands of years, and even more intriguing was their concentration, as they were not scattered randomly but clustered heavily at the base of the rock, suggesting repeated activity in a specific location. Alongside these remains were finely crafted stone tools associated with the Solutrian culture, a prehistoric culture known for its exceptional craftsmanship, forming a scene that was both fascinating and unsettling, a place where humans and animals intersected on a massive scale again and again across millennia. At the heart of Solutré lies its most enduring enigma, the overwhelming number of horse remains, prompting the question of why so many animals would die in the same place repeatedly over thousands of years. One of the earliest and most widely known theories proposes a dramatic explanation in which prehistoric hunters drove herds of wild horses up the slopes and forced them toward the edge, causing them to plunge over the cliff in a moment of panic before being processed below a scenario that paints a vivid image of coordinated hunting and strategic use of the landscape. However, despite its popularity, this theory faces serious challenges as modern archaeological evidence does not fully support the idea of mass cliff falls. Many bones lack the fracture patterns expected from high-impact drops, and instead suggest that the animals were killed and processed on the ground, forcing researchers to confront a deeper and more complex question: if not a catastrophic fall, then what really happened here? Excavations at Solutré reveal not only bones, but patterns that hint at complex human behavior, as the site appears to have been used repeatedly, possibly as a seasonal hunting ground where migrating herds passed through and human groups returned year after year to exploit this predictable resource. In this interpretation, the accumulation of bones is not the result of a single dramatic event, but the gradual outcome of countless hunts over generations. Yet even this explanation leaves important questions unanswered, including why this exact location was chosen so consistently and how early humans coordinated hunting efforts on such a scale. The presence of highly refined stone tools further deepens the mystery, as the Solutrian people demonstrated remarkable skill in crafting delicate symmetrical points, resembling laurel leaves, suggesting a culture capable of planning cooperation and technical precision far beyond simple survival qualities that would have been essential for managing large-scale hunting operations in a challenging environment. Solutré is not entirely unique in the archaeological record, as other prehistoric sites, such as the Buffalo Jumps of North America, provide evidence of humans using landscape features to hunt large numbers of animals, with locations like Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump in Canada clearly showing herds driven over cliffs in coordinated hunts supported by bone damage patterns and ethnographic evidence. However, key differences set Solutré apart, since the expected physical evidence of mass falls is not clearly present, and instead, the data points toward a more nuanced and possibly more sophisticated system involving ambushes, controlled movement, or strategic positioning rather than dramatic cliff drives, making Solutré not just another hunting site, but a complex puzzle that challenges our understanding of prehistoric human behavior. Several competing theories attempt to explain the mystery of Solutré, ranging from the visually striking but increasingly questioned cliff drive hypothesis to the more widely accepted seasonal hunting ground theory that emphasizes long-term accumulation, as well as the possibility that the site held ritual or cultural significance tied to hunting traditions or symbolic practices. Another perspective, known as the strategic landscape theory, suggests that the rock's natural formation allowed hunters to manipulate animal movement and create controlled hunting zones without necessarily forcing animals over the edge. And while each of these theories offers valuable insights, none provide a complete explanation, leaving the true nature of Solutré suspended somewhere between strategy, adaptation, and myth. Today, the Rock of Solutré stands as both a natural landmark and a window into humanity's distant past, challenging assumptions about prehistoric life by revealing a world in which survival depended on intelligence cooperation and an intimate understanding of the environment. It is a place where scientific evidence provides fragments of a story, but not its entirety, where data suggests one interpretation while imagination invites another, and where the boundary between knowledge and mystery remains intact. Was this a site of calculated strategy, where early humans mastered the land itself as a tool for survival, or is the truth more subtle, hidden within layers of time that have yet to fully reveal their secrets. Somewhere beneath the stones of Solutré, the answer still lies buried. Across the ancient world, there are monuments that challenge what we think early civilizations were capable of achieving. Massive pyramids, precisely aligned temples, and intricately carved stone structures stand as silent witnesses to lost knowledge. But in southern India, within a ruined city reclaimed by time, there exists something even more unusual. Here, stone does not merely stand, it resonates. In the ruins of Hampi, visitors encounter a phenomenon that feels almost impossible. Columns carved from solid rock produce musical tones when gently struck. For centuries, this strange acoustic behavior has sparked myths of magnetic pillars, supernatural forces, and forgotten technologies. Yet the truth may be even more extraordinary than the legend. Hampi lies in the southern Indian state of Karnataka, nestled along the banks of the Tungabhadra River. The landscape is surreal, an expanse of giant boulders stacked precariously across rolling terrain as if shaped by forces beyond natural erosion. Between the 14th and 16th centuries, this region served as the capital of the powerful Vijayanagara Empire. At its height, the city was one of the largest and wealthiest in the world, filled with temples, markets, palaces, and ceremonial spaces. Among its many architectural wonders stands the Vitala Temple, a masterpiece of engineering and artistic ambition, and the very place where the so-called magnetic pillars are found. Although local communities had long been aware of the temple's unusual properties, wider recognition came during colonial-era surveys in the 19th century. British explorers and archaeologists documented the site, noting both its grandeur and its peculiar acoustics. Early reports described pillars that could produce distinct musical notes when tapped, and some accounts went further, suggesting hidden mechanisms or metallic components embedded within the stone. Over time, these observations evolved into stories. The pillars were said to possess magnetic properties, to levitate, or to respond to unseen energies. These claims spread far beyond academic circles, transforming a real phenomenon into a layered myth that continues to capture the imagination today. At the heart of the Vitala Temple complex stands a large pavilion, supported by clusters of slender columns, each main pillar surrounded by several smaller, finely carved sub-columns. When gently struck, these sub-columns emit clear, bell-like tones. Some produce deep drum-like sounds, while others resonate with higher metallic frequencies. Together, they form what appears to be a carefully tuned acoustic system crafted entirely from granite. This is where the mystery deepens, because granite is not an obvious material for musical precision. It is dense, brittle, and notoriously difficult to shape with fine control. Yet the artisans of Hampi appear to have manipulated it with extraordinary accuracy. Each column behaves differently, suggesting variations in internal structure density or geometry. The arrangement is not random. It feels intentional, almost as if the temple itself was designed to function as a stone instrument. The engineering behind these pillars remains one of the most puzzling aspects of the site. The columns are carved from single blocks of stone, rather than assembled from multiple pieces, eliminating the possibility of hidden joints or inserted components. There are no visible cavities, no metal cores, and no evidence of later modification. Modern engineers attempting to replicate similar acoustic properties face significant challenges, as achieving consistent tonal variation in stone requires precise control over thickness, internal stress distribution, and resonance pathways. Yet the builders of Hampi accomplished this without modern tools, digital modeling, or acoustic measurement devices. One possibility is that they relied on empirical knowledge generations of experimentation refined over centuries. Another is that they possessed an intuitive understanding of resonance, developed through observation and practice. Still, the level of precision suggests something more systematic, something that borders on a lost science. Archaeological investigations have provided valuable insights but also revealed clear limitations. In earlier periods, some researchers attempted to uncover the secret by breaking parts of the columns, hoping to find hidden chambers or materials inside. These efforts caused irreversible damage and yielded no definitive answers. Today, more advanced, non-invasive techniques such as three-dimensional scanning and acoustic analysis are used to study the site. These methods confirm that the sound originates from the stone itself, shaped in such a way that it vibrates at specific frequencies when struck. However, they still do not fully explain how such precise tuning was achieved. The absence of written records from the builders only deepens the mystery, leaving modern scholars to reconstruct knowledge that may have once been common practice. When compared to other ancient sites, Hampi stands within a broader tradition of acoustic awareness, yet it also remains uniquely advanced. At Chichen Itza, a clap at the base of the pyramid produces an echo resembling the call of a sacred bird, while in the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, certain chambers amplify the human voice into a deep, resonant vibration that can be felt as much as heard. These examples demonstrate that ancient cultures understood how architecture could shape sound. However, the pillars of Hampi go a step further, not merely reflecting or amplifying sound, but generating it, directly placing them in a category of their own within the study of ancient engineering. Various theories attempt to explain the phenomenon, ranging from grounded scientific interpretations to more speculative ideas. Some researchers argue that the pillars were shaped according to precise dimensions that naturally resonate at particular frequencies, effectively turning each column into a tuned instrument. Others suggest that subtle internal microstructures within the stone, created during carving, influence how sound waves travel through it. There is also the possibility that the pillars served a ritual function, producing music as part of ceremonial practices within the temple complex. More speculative theories propose lost technologies or unknown tools, but these remain unsupported by evidence. What persists is a gap between what can be measured and what can be fully understood. The legend of magnetic pillars continues to circulate, fueled by fascination and misunderstanding. In reality, there is no scientific evidence to support the idea that these columns possess magnetic properties. The myth likely emerged as an attempt to explain an unfamiliar acoustic phenomenon using more familiar concepts. Over time, this interpretation took on a life of its own, overshadowing the true nature of the pillars. Yet even without the exaggeration, the reality remains deeply impressive. The ruins of Hampi are more than the remnants of a once great empire. They are a testament to human ingenuity at a level that still challenges modern assumptions. The musical pillars of the Vitala temple do not need myth to be extraordinary. Their existence alone raises profound questions about knowledge, craftsmanship, and the limits of ancient technology. How did these artisans achieve such precision, using only the tools available to them? What understanding guided their work, and why has it not survived in written form? In the silence of the ruins, these questions remain unanswered, but the evidence endures. If one listens closely beyond the myths and the passage of time, the stone still sings. Across the vast plains of northern Mesopotamia, long before the rise of empires, before written myths took form, there existed a city that watched, not metaphorically, but literally. Hidden beneath layers of dust and time, at Tell Brak archaeologists uncovered a structure unlike any other in the ancient world. Inside it, buried in silence, were thousands of small figurines. They did not depict kings, gods, or animals. They depicted eyes, wide, unblinking, and impossibly large, staring into eternity. This was not just a temple. It was something else, something far more unsettling. Tell Brak lies in what was once the fertile heart of Mesopotamia, near the Kabur River in modern-day Syria. Today, the landscape appears dry and unremarkable, but around 4000 BCE, this region was a thriving center of early urban life. Unlike southern Mesopotamian cities, such as Uruk Tell Brak, developed independently, reaching an urban scale surprisingly early. This makes the Eye Temple even more remarkable because it suggests that complex religious systems and perhaps complex psychological frameworks were already emerging at the dawn of civilization. The Eye Temple was first excavated in the 1930s by British archaeologist Sir Max Mallowan, and what he and his team found would challenge conventional understanding of early religion. Beneath successive architectural layers, they uncovered thousands of small stone figurines, now known as eye idols. These objects were not scattered randomly. Many had been deliberately deposited almost as if they were offerings. Some were stacked, others buried in clusters, and the deeper the archaeologists dug, the more they found. With each layer uncovered, the pattern became clearer and more unsettling. Each idol is striking in its simplicity. The body is minimal, often just a flat base or a rough humanoid outline with no detailed limbs or expressive features. Yet one element dominates everything: the eyes. Oversized, carefully carved, sometimes doubled or layered, they overwhelm the rest of the figure. In many cases, the proportions feel unnatural, as if the entire purpose of the object is to represent sight itself. Some idols are small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, while others are larger, perhaps indicating status or importance. But all share one haunting characteristic: none of them look away. The Eye Temple was not constructed once, but rebuilt repeatedly over centuries, each new phase rising above the previous one and burying it beneath. This layering forms a vertical timeline of belief, preserving a record of evolving rituals across generations. Within these layers, eye idols appear again and again, suggesting that the symbolic importance of watching endured over time. In some levels, idols were intentionally buried beneath floors, not discarded or broken, but carefully placed, as if meant to remain hidden, yet present, embedded within the very foundation of the temple itself. Despite decades of study, no definitive explanation has emerged for what these eyes truly meant. There are no inscriptions, no written records, no surviving myths, only the silent presence of countless staring forms. Some theories suggest the idols represent divine beings, entities that constantly observed the human world. Others propose that they symbolize worshippers themselves, standing in eternal devotion, their gaze fixed upon a god, even in absence. A more unsettling interpretation suggests a belief in constant surveillance, a sacred awareness that human actions were always being watched. Yet none of these explanations fully account for the sheer number of idols, thousands upon thousands, raising the question of why such an overwhelming presence of watchers was necessary. What makes the Eye Temple even more puzzling is its uniqueness. In other regions of Mesopotamia, such as Uruk or Eridu temples, contained statues of gods, animals, or symbolic figures tied to known mythologies. But nothing comparable to the eye idols has been discovered elsewhere at this scale. There are no true parallels in Egypt, the Indus Valley, or Anatolia from the same era. This suggests that the belief system at Tell Brak may have been highly localized, possibly short-lived, or part of a tradition that has been completely lost to history. Although no direct equivalent exists, echoes of the idea of watching can be found in other ancient cultures. In Egypt, the Eye of Horus symbolized protection and divine awareness. In later Mesopotamian sites, such as Tel Asmar, statues with enlarged eyes represented worshippers in perpetual devotion. Yet these examples differ in crucial ways. They remain symbolic rather than overwhelming, integrated rather than dominant, and they do not reduce the human form to vision alone. The eye temple stands apart as something more extreme, almost abstract in its singular focus. Some researchers suggest that the eye temple represents a transitional phase in religious thought, a moment when humans were beginning to conceptualize unseen forces and intangible presences. Others propose a more radical interpretation that the emphasis on eyes reflects an early awareness of perception itself, not merely the act of seeing, but the experience of being seen. In this view, the idols are not simply objects of worship, but instruments of presence, creating an environment in which observation is constant and nothing escapes notice. It becomes less about gods and more about awareness, a proto-concept of surveillance embedded within sacred space. Today, the eye temple remains silent, its idols preserved in museums, their gaze unchanged after more than 5,000 years. They offer no explanation, no inscription, no narrative, only a lingering question. What kind of world produces thousands of eyes, yet no faces? Was this a culture obsessed with divine observation, a society striving to remain visible to unseen forces, or something even stranger? A belief system that modern minds can no longer fully comprehend. The answers may never be known, but the eyes remain unblinking, watching across the vast distance of time. Across the ancient world, artifacts occasionally surface that seem to blur the line between history and imagination. The Dashka stone is one of those rare objects, an artifact that, if its most extreme interpretations were true, would force us to rethink not only the past, but the very timeline of human capability. Often referred to as the Chandar slab, this massive stone appears at first glance to be nothing more than a weathered geological fragment, but look closer, and patterns begin to emerge, patterns that resemble something strikingly familiar: a map. Not a simple map, but a detailed, three-dimensional representation of terrain, and that is where the mystery begins. The Dashka stone was reportedly discovered in the region of Bashkortostan, located in the southern Ural Mountains of Russia, an area rich in geological diversity and ancient landscapes that has long been a crossroads between Europe and Asia. The terrain itself is complex, with rivers winding through valleys and ridges, rising in irregular formations shaped by millions of years of erosion. And it is precisely this natural complexity that makes the stone so intriguing, because the carvings on its surface appear to mirror this kind of terrain. Some researchers have claimed that the stone resembles a section of the Ural region, complete with river systems and what may be artificial channels, and if true, it would suggest an understanding of large-scale geography that is difficult to reconcile with known ancient technologies. The story of the stone's discovery adds another layer of intrigue. In 1999, a Russian researcher named Alexander Chuvirov reportedly came across the slab while investigating ancient inscriptions in the area, and the stone was partially buried, its surface hidden beneath layers of soil and time. When it was unearthed, what emerged was not a smooth or decorative surface, but a textured relief filled with lines, ridges, and depressions that seemed too structured to be random. At first, the markings were dismissed as natural formations, but as the surface was examined more closely, A different interpretation began to take shape as the patterns appeared intentional and, more importantly, organized. The most striking feature of the Dashka stone is its topography-like surface, where raised areas resemble plateaus or elevated terrain, and depressions suggest river valleys or channels, while some lines appear to branch and converge in ways that mimic the behavior of natural water systems. To the human eye, especially one trained to recognize maps, the resemblance is difficult to ignore, and some interpretations go even further, suggesting that the stone depicts not just natural geography, but engineered features such as canals, dams, or irrigation systems. If accurate, this would imply a capacity for large-scale environmental planning, the ability to survey land from a high vantage point, and a method of recording geographic data. In physical form capabilities, we typically associate with far more recent civilizations. Beyond its surface patterns, the internal structure of the Dashka stone has also raised questions, as reports claim that the slab is composed of multiple layers, including a base of dolomite stone, an intermediate layer with properties resembling processed material, and a top layer described as ceramic-like. This layered composition has led some to speculate that the stone is not purely natural but partially manufactured. Although these claims remain controversial and without widely accepted peer-reviewed analysis, it is difficult to determine whether these observations reflect genuine anomalies or misinterpretations of natural geological processes. Perhaps the most sensational aspect of the Dashka stone is the claim regarding its age, with some sources suggesting that the slab could be millions of years old, which, if true, would place its creation long before the emergence of human civilization or even humans themselves. However, this claim presents a fundamental problem, as there is currently no reliable scientific method that has confirmed such an age for the artifact, and most archaeologists and geologists remain highly skeptical, emphasizing that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, which in this case is lacking. One of the most telling aspects of the Dashka stone mystery is not what has been said about it, but what has not, as the artifact has not been widely published in major scientific journals, is rarely discussed in mainstream archaeological literature, and lacks a strong consensus among experts regarding its significance. This absence raises important questions about whether the stone is being overlooked or dismissed for valid reasons, whether the claims surrounding it are exaggerated or unsupported, or whether it is simply an anomaly that has yet to be properly studied, because in science, silence often speaks louder than speculation. Throughout history, humans have created maps in many forms, from clay tablets in Mesopotamia to carved stone maps in ancient cultures and early topographic representations in Roman engineering. Yet these examples share key characteristics in that they are symbolic rather than fully three-dimensional, reflect limited geographic scope, and align with the technological capabilities of their time. The Dashka stone, if interpreted as a true relief map, would stand apart as its apparent scale detail and dimensionality would make it unlike any confirmed ancient cartographic artifact. Several interpretations have emerged to explain the Dashka stone, ranging from the natural formation theory, which suggests that the patterns are the result of erosion mineral layering and geological coincidence, to the misinterpretation theory, which argues that the map is an illusion created by pareidolia, where the brain recognizes familiar patterns in random data. Other more speculative ideas include the possibility that the slab is a genuine artifact created by a previously unknown ancient culture with advanced geographic knowledge, or even the existence of a lost civilization with technological capabilities far beyond what is currently accepted. Although among these, the more conservative explanations are generally favored by the scientific community. The Dashka stone ultimately occupies a unique space between curiosity and controversy, as it is neither widely accepted as evidence of advanced ancient technology nor entirely dismissed as meaningless, instead lingering in a state of uncertainty as a fragment of stone that invites interpretation, challenges perception, and resists easy explanation. In the end, the true mystery may not lie within the stone itself, but within the way we perceive it, because sometimes the most compelling mysteries are not the ones that rewrite history, but the ones that reveal how little we truly understand about it.